Happy Monday, MMA fans. For those of you who are returning, thank you as always for watching my videos. For those who are just viewing my videos for the first time, I want to thank you as well. So I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently than my videos in the past. So this is an analysis and predictions video for the UFC live on ESPN +1 card on January 19th, Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. But instead of covering all of the fights on just this one video, I'm actually going to be splitting this up into two parts. So the reason why I'm doing that is because I think maybe my videos in the past have been a little bit too long, but this main card actually has 6 fights on it versus the normal 5. So I'm going to do 3 in this video and 3 in the next. So let's jump right into it. The first fight of the night is out of the light heavyweight division, number 12, Glover Teixeira versus Karl Baby K Roberson. Interesting matchup already because Karl Roberson is actually stepping in on very late notice to fight Glover Teixeira after Ion Cutelaba had to pull out a few days ago due to an injury. So a little bit about both of these fighters and the Vegas odds. Glover's 39 years old. He's 27-7. Karl is 28 years old, 7-1. Really young in his MMA career. Vegas odds for this fight: Glover Teixeira, slight favorite coming out of Vegas, -125. So anybody watching this channel, you all know who Glover Teixeira is. He's been in this sport a long time. 27-7 overall. He's a boxer. He's a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Out of his 27 wins, he's finished 23 of them. So this guy's he's a killer, and we all know that. He's got 17 knockouts, 6 submissions, and the rest decisions. So he's coming off of a loss against Corey Anderson, and he's over his last 10 fights, he's 5-5. Since 2016, he's 3-3. So although he is constantly facing some of the toughest guys in the world, he's kind of winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. So he's up against Karl Roberson now. Karl Roberson is a kickboxer who's coming off the K1 scene. Karl was one of Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series guys who he actually had a 15-second knockout in the Contender Series. It was amazing. From like 6 inches out, he landed a few powerful elbows and KO'd his opponent. It was really impressive. So out of Karl's 7 victories in MMA, he's finished 5 of them. And what I thought was surprising was he has more submissions than he does KOs or decisions. And this is a kickboxer. So I just thought that was really surprising. So he has 2 arm bars and 1 rear naked choke, 2 knockouts, and 2 decisions. Thought that was pretty surprising. Something else to note is that he's also traditionally a middleweight, fighting at 185 pounds. So he's fighting Glover Teixeira might be the biggest guy he's gotten in the octagon with so far. Thought that was interesting. Another interesting aspect of this fight, though, is although Karl Roberson is taking this fight on very short notice, he's got a week to prepare, and including the weight cut, by the way, if there is any. It's probably very moderate, being that he's moving up a weight class for this. But he's got a week to prepare for this fight. But one of his training partners is Corey Anderson, who that's who Glover fought last. He's coming off of a unanimous decision loss to Corey Anderson. So Karl's got a real short time to prepare, but there might not be anybody else out there to help him prepare better for this fight than Corey Anderson. So something to note. All right, strategically looking at this fight, Glover's a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got the advantage on the ground. I know I was going on about how I was surprised that Karl has 3 submissions out of his 7 wins, but Glover is better on the ground. It's just, that's the way that it is. But you can't look past Karl in that aspect. Karl, I think, even though he's facing a bigger guy and a boxer, someone who's got 17 knockouts in Glover Teixeira, I think Karl's got the advantage on the feet. He's got big power, particularly in his left hand and his left leg. So he's also a southpaw, which might present some challenges for Glover Teixeira. So I think basically Glover's pathway to victory here, in my opinion, is throw some combinations, maybe back Karl up to the fence, and when he sees an opening, go for the takedown and exploit what could be a weakness of Karl's, or more so an advantage of yours, which is the ground game. So Karl's only lost one time in his MMA career, but that was a submission. He got choked out. So I think if, Glover's truest pathway to victory here is taking him down and trying to go for the submission. I think Karl, on the other hand, just needs to do what he does best. He's coming off of the kickboxing scene. He's got big power in his left hand, his left leg. I think if he stays standing, he's also got great defense, Karl. I watched 3 of his fights, and he keeps his hands up, he moves in, and he moves out. So he doesn't like to make it dirty. He's got really crisp technique that was quite nice to watch. So I think that's Karl's pathway to victory. I don't want him to get too comfortable thinking that, I've got 3 submissions in MMA, I'll take Glover down and maybe get the same result. I hope he doesn't think that, because Glover's got the advantage on the ground. Now, sorry, my get out of here. My cat just hopped on the table. Long story, wasn't my idea. So anyway, that's how I think both of these guys, their pathway to victory is Glover, take it to the ground. I know you're capable, more than capable on your feet, but take it for the ground and go for the submission. Karl, I know you're confident on the ground, but keep it standing and try and inflict some damage on Glover Teixeira. So getting to the prediction, I've got a lot of respect for Glover Teixeira, and he's the favorite in this fight. And I think for good reason. Very well-rounded fighter in all aspects of the game. He's been doing this a long time. Karl's very young and inexperienced in his career, in his MMA career. But I'm picking the underdog. I think that no man alive can defeat Father Time. Glover Teixeira's 39 years old. He's facing a young, hungry opponent who's got real dangerous power on the feet. So my prediction for the fight, I'm going to go Karl Roberson, 3rd round knockout. So the second fight of the night, coming out of the women's flyweight division, Paige 12 gauge VanZant versus Rachael Ostovich. So Paige is 24 years old. She's 7-4. Rachel's 27. She's 4-4. Vegas odds for you. VanZant is a -155 favorite, so about 1.5 to 1. Paige is the favorite. Now, I just want to address the elephant in the room. I think this is kind of funny, and I think it's done on purpose. So these are the 2 best-looking women in all of MMA, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they matched them up against one another on the main card, on the first card on ESPN. I just want to throw that out there. A little kudos to the UFC for having fun with that one. But let's get to the fighting. And I say that with all due respect, by the way. But let's get to the fighting. So Paige VanZant, she's coming off of over a year layoff. Out of her 7 wins, she's finished 4 of them, 2 knockouts, 2 submissions. So Paige is most well known for her flying switch kick against Bec Rawlins, which would lead you to believe that she's some Muay Thai expert, when that's really not the case. Paige is a pressure fighter. She loves dirty boxing, getting you up against the cage, in close, elbows, grappling, getting you to the ground, and ground and pound. Paige is kind of a ground and pound expert. It's really her forte, is getting in close and pressure fighting. So I mentioned she's coming off of a year layoff. It is due to injury, but I also think that's in part because out of her last 4 fights, she went 1-3. So she's lost 2 straight. and coming off of over a year layoff, and I think a lot of that was due to injury. But it'll be interesting to see injury, maybe just taking some time off. It'll be interesting to see how she rebounds in kind of this 2019 comeback for Paige VanZant. So she's up against Rachael Ostovich. Rachael is a judo-style fighter who also likes to grapple. I'll get into the stylistic aspects of this fight in a second, but I like that matchup for those reasons. They're both sort of in close grappling, ground and pound pressure fighters. But Rachael, she's a tough chick, but she's 4-4 in her MMA career, so she's just 500 out of 8 fights. And she's been finished all 4 of those losses. So she's never lost to a decision. She's been knocked out twice and submitted twice. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's like, although she's a tough chick, and I actually, in watching her fights, I like the game she brings. She is not by any means an expert on the feet. But she's a really tough chick, and I like her attitude, but it seems like every time we see her have a good performance, she follows it up with a loss. Just looking at her 8 fights in MMA so far, she went loss, win, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So very inconsistent from Rachael. It'll be interesting to see how she comes out there against somebody who's taken a long layoff in Paige VanZant and who shares a lot of the same stylistic traits that Rachael does. So, with that said, the ground game, I think it's pretty evenly matched up, to be honest with you. I think they're pretty evenly matched. Wrestling, ground and pound, it's sort of their forte. But I know Paige is no Muay Thai expert, but she's got the clear advantage on the feet. If you look just statistically speaking, striking, standing up, Paige lands more significant strikes per minute and absorbs less significant strikes per minute than Rachael. Rachael actually, over the history of her MMA career, she's actually absorbed more significant strikes than she's inflicted. So she's just at a clear disadvantage against Paige on the feet, even though Paige is not a Muay Thai expert. So they're both tough chicks. Grappling's going to play a lot into this fight. I think it's going to go a decision, and because I'm giving Paige the clear advantage on the feet, I've got to give Paige the clear advantage in 3 rounds regarding points. So I'm going to go Paige VanZant unanimous decision over Rachael Ostovich. So the third fight of the night out of the flyweight division, number 2 ranked Joseph Benavidez versus number 8 ranked Dustin Ortiz. So Joseph is 34 years old. He's 26-5 in his MMA career. Ortiz is 30 years old, 19-7 in his MMA career. Vegas odds for this fight: Benavidez is the big favorite, almost 2.5 to 1. He's minus 240 coming out of Vegas for Benavidez. So anybody watching this channel, you know who Joseph Benavidez is. He's a very well-rounded fighter, wrestler, boxer, Muay Thai expert. He's a split decision loss to Sergio Pettis away from being on an 8-fight win streak. He's been doing great over the course of the last few years, ever since his loss to Demetrius Johnson. And Benavidez actually has a win over the current champ, who we'll see fight later tonight, Henry Cejudo. So Benavidez is just as tough as it gets in the flyweight division. Out of his 26 wins, he's finished 16 of them, 7 by knockout, 9 by submission, 10 decisions. He's fighting Dustin Ortiz, who's a real tough guy. Again, a very well-rounded fighter. He's, like Benavidez, he seems to be like a true mixed martial artist. He's a wrestler. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. And the guy can throw hands, too. He's got heavy hands for being a flyweight. So he's on a 3-fight win streak, and 2 of those have come by knockout. So he's been doing really good things lately, too. 8 wins in the UFC, 4 by knockout. Interesting thing about this matchup, though, is that these guys fought before. They fought in November of 2014, and Joseph Benavidez won by a unanimous decision. So since that fight, Dustin Ortiz has gone 5-3 in the UFC, and he's got some good wins in there. Like I mentioned, he's on a 3-fight win streak with 2 knockouts. So he's a younger guy than Benavidez. So I think it's a lot of like, what have you done for me lately? And he's been doing great lately. So I think that Dustin Ortiz has improved since he last fought Joseph Benavidez. But, you know, unfortunately, I just think that this fight is going to play out a lot like the first fight. Benavidez is on a roll as well. He's one of the best flyweights in the world. As I mentioned, he's got a win over the current champ, Henry Cejudo. So he's just a bad dude. You know, Benavidez is a guy who used to compete at bantamweight and has 2 split decision losses to Dominic Cruz. So Benavidez truly only loses to the elite of the elite in the world. And unfortunately, I just don't think Dustin Ortiz is going to have enough to get it done that night. I'm going to go Joseph Benavidez, unanimous decision over Dustin Ortiz. That's it for part 1, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to tune in for part 2. I'm going to cover the next 3 fights. Gregor Gillespie versus Yancy Medeiros, Greg Hardy versus Alan Crowder, and of course the main event, TJ Dillashaw versus Henry Cejudo. Thanks.